You're listening to Mark of the Maker. Hey everybody, I'm Mark Steiner and you're listening to Mark the Maker. This is episode 152 of the show, and this is part 2 of an interview with Jim Wirth of Giant Mouse Knives, but let's take care of business before we get into that. First, I'd like to thank our friends on Patreon for all of their long-running support. They really are our primary source of funding for the show. We have a number of patrons that have been with us for a very long time, which we deeply and sincerely appreciate. If you enjoy the show, joining our Patreon is a great way to show your support and to help keep us up and running. You can find us at patreon.com/markofthemaker, all is one word, or grab the link at the top right corner of our website. A couple different options there if you'd like to send in a donation to help support the show. Second, I'd like to thank the folks from Arizona Custom Knives. Arizona's been a long-running supporter, and we have some cool stuff coming up with them that you're not going to want to miss. They have a crazy inventory of more than 17,000 different items on their website. And one of the things we really appreciate about Arizona is that they keep a very long back history of items that have come through the site over the years. It's a great reference, and if you're trying to find out more about a specific piece, maybe you find a date on something or even identify the maker of a piece, it's a super spot to do that. You can even get historical price references there or see how prices on particular makers' work have changed over time. Some of that's pretty fascinating, to be honest. Or even just peruse some of the knife-making world's greatest talents. They have had examples from so many fantastic makers over the years that are represented there, and you can find them at ArizonaCustomKnives.com. If you do decide to make a purchase, and we encourage you to, please use the code Mark of the Maker ! That gets you free shipping at checkout. So thanks, Arizona. We appreciate you. Last, I'd like to thank the folks from Giant Mouse Knives for all their support. You can find them at giantmouse.com. They always have something fun cooking, new projects, re-releases, you name it. One that I've really enjoyed seeing was their recent collaboration with classic dive watch maker Zodiac. For those that have been around watches for a minute, you'll be really familiar with Zodiac's classic dive designs. Giant Mouse and Zodiac teamed up to make a limited edition set of a Zodiac Super Seawolf dive watch in a special colorway with special caseback marking alongside a dive knife that's a really cool design. Both are fantastic pieces. I've had the pleasure to check out both of these in hand, and I can attest they're fantastic. So that was a fun project that they recently did, and they've done many collabs over the years, and I think have a few more in the hopper, so always keep an eye on their website and on their Instagram, and you can score yourself something nice. You deserve it. Okay, this is the second half of my conversation with Jim Wirth. We get into a number of different pieces in his oddities collection, and we get a bit deeper into his other hobbies and other things he collects. To be honest, he's got a collecting problem. I think his wife would attest, and he will admit willingly as well. He's into lots of different stuff, and he has, I think, fantastic taste. So all the pieces are really, really cool to check out. So anyway, it was a fun chat, one that I hope you enjoy. So here is part 2 with Jim Wirth from Giant Mouse.
So a couple other things, I guess. So this was from our last trip to Italy when we went, and we were there during the knife festival in Maniago. And there was so all the knife manufacturers and makers and lots of other just artisans that do all sorts of different kind of art all set up tents in this, kind of a number of, they're not really even blocks. It's just like 2 main streets in downtown Maniago, or the city center. It's not even like a downtown, it's just a city center. And so they have all their stuff there, and they're showing, and some people selling their stuff. But there was a tent there where they were demonstrating forging. There were like 3 or 4 guys that forge steel and make kind of forged weapons, forged knives and things. And they had this dagger was sitting there. And so it's all, forged Damascus.
Yeah, beautiful.
The blade itself, it's got a big fuller in the down the middle of the blade. It's got bronze. I don't know, what do you call that piece there? That
like a fitting at the base of the blade.
Yeah. Yep. So right above the guard, between the guard and the blade is a big bronze fitting. And then the guard itself is Damascus, but it has these little like bronze balls on the end. Kind of, it's like little tips are holding the balls.
Yep.
And then the pommel itself, it has really nice inlays with a little brass tip on it. So it's just beautifully done. And so I reluctantly asked the guy, what, how much is that? Thinking he was going to say like, 3,000 euros or something.
Right.
And he said 300. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, 300 euros. So I couldn't get my money out of my pocket fast enough for this thing. It's just an incredible dagger, all handmade, all hand forged, 300 euros. So
it's a good sized dagger, 8 or 9 inch blade. It's got a broad blade too, right?
Yeah,
almost 2 inches
very
across.
Broad blade. Yep.
Very cool.
Yep. And then the same artist that made that, this was sitting there as well. And I love Japanese swords and knives. So this is one of the guards.
Suba, they call it.
Suba, yeah. Yep. So, and it's got some nice little flowers, silver and brass flowers inlaid on this bronze
gorgeous.
guard. It's like, what am I going to do with it other than just have it on a shelf, and look at it? But it's just beautiful.
Lots of people collect Subas. Yeah, that's awesome. And these same guys made it?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's for a very thin blank, or at least the base, the tang of the knife would be pretty thin. Yeah, gorgeous.
Yeah, he said he was going to make the full knife and use this with it, but then he had a failure or something with the knife itself, and so he set this aside and was going to use it down the road. But I talked him into just selling it as just a standalone piece because it's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. The blade shows, you've been to plenty of them.
Yeah.
That guy, he's Russian and he lives in Italy. Dimitri, he's the pen guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I commissioned.
Oh, wow.
This is for my Panerai, problem. I commissioned this pen, which is, all down steel, big custom pen. And it's basically, it's got the Flatiglia Mas symbol on it, which he nailed the anodizing of the colors here.
He really did.
So the Flatiglia Mas was the Italian Marina Militare frogmen from World War II. So there's a little skull with a rose on the top of the big Roman numeral X. It says Flatiglia Mas. And then down here, there's a one of the frogmen swimming in the water, with his wire cutters, cutting some mesh, wire underwater. So again, it's just a one-off bespoke piece that, I had commissioned to go kind of with my Panerai.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Passion.
Did he make the Damascus, do you know? Or
I'm not sure if he actually makes I don't think he makes, he's more of a jeweler, more of a fine. He makes really beautiful rings. I've bought a couple of his rings for my wife and I, but his pens are just incredible.
Yeah, it's got some really pretty, almost like raindrop style pattern Damascus, and nice, deeply etched too. There's some texture to it. I really like that. Yeah, he really did nail it on the logo. That's beautiful. Must have lasered this, I'm guessing. Yeah. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, one of our friends, every time I post a Panerai picture, I get a message that says, "That's a good looking Italian frogman." Italian frogman. Beautiful. Yeah.
And then I got my collection of my son Will, who's 24 now, but like 10 years ago, he designed these little mechs, little kind of robot warriors that we had, the time we weren't 3D printing ourselves, but we were, using third-party, sources like Shapeways mainly. So we had some 3D printed and then cast in brass. Actually, I had a few cast in silver as well. Of this was his first one. He called it BAM for bipedal assault mech. So it's just this cool like robot with a little kind of camera thing on top and a gun on it. But he, when he was 14, he was like coming up with all these designs for these little robot warriors, and I ended up, having batches of them made and cast in brass or bronze, and and was selling them on the Golden Gate Goods site for a while. And then Urban EDC ended up buying a bunch of them and selling them on their website for quite a while.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are... Can people still find pictures of these?
They can. You can find pictures of some of them. So my son had a website it's still up, but it's pretty stagnant. He hasn't done anything with it in 10 years, but it's Rooster Dog Designs.
Rooster Dog Designs.
Yeah, if you search Rooster Dog Designs, you'll find pictures of these. And then my Instagram as well. If you go way back in my photos on my Instagram, you'll find pictures of these.
Yeah, I always thought these were super cool when you were first doing stuff.
I could see with you with your ray gun thing, you would find these really interesting.
They have that kind of retro futuristic vibe going on, what I really, really like.
Yeah, but he would come up with really interesting names too. Like this one he called Curiosity of Intergalactic Justice. So he took, this was like a solar shield from the Curiosity rover.
Okay.
Right. So he got inspiration from the Curiosity rover, and he put that little solar panel thing on the shoulder of this robot, basically that's carrying a big gun, and he's got like a nuclear reactor symbol on his chest.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're cool.
Yeah. That's Oculus Quad. He named this one because it's got like these, well, I guess that would be like a gun, but it's got this camera system here on the top, like two eyes almost on top of this little thing.
Right.
And then it's like a sled. The front legs are like sled laser cannons.
Yeah.
And then the back legs are more just like legs.
Right.
But he came up with all the names for them.
Just reminds me of the whole robot dog thing where it's like a robot dog that carries a flamethrower or a machine gun or something. It's got a lot of that same kind of look to it.
Yeah.
Oh, these are awesome.
And then a couple of old knives. I think I've maybe shown this one to you in the past. It's
I think
really, so this was a neighbor of mine out in California had these. He was an old timer, back when I was younger, and he was a World War II vet and had amazing stories. Actually, I don't know if I ever showed you my wakizashi, but it's, he was presented with this wakizashi by a Japanese village elder because he was a lieutenant colonel, and he had his troops like stationed to rebuild a Japanese village that had been pretty much destroyed in the war, right?
Yeah.
So the elder of the village gave him this wakizashi, which is just in like hoe wood, the basic storage case that it would be in. But he had the research done on it, and I have all the paperwork for it, but it was dated back to a school from like 1650.
Wow.
As based on the markings on the tang.
Yeah.
Have you heard the thing about how they also, like, they have marks, a sword on the tangs to be like a 2-man sword or a 3-man sword?
No.
Have you heard about this?
No.
I don't know if it's actual fact or not, but I've heard that in the past, and the story goes that they would test the sword by seeing how many people it would cut through.
Yeah.
So they would basically line up like 3 prisoners of war or whatever, 3 criminals. Well, I don't know who they used, but they would basically then have the sword master, swipe through midsection and see how many bodies it would slice through. And then they would call it they would mark it on the tang a 3-man sword or a 2-man sword or whatever.
It's a very Sean Kendrick type of measurement system.
Yeah, we should ask Sean to validate that for us. But it's just a cool, the sheath has just got beautiful leather work on it. This thing, it's just a massive, like game chopping knife, with a big stag handle, really interesting, construction and, etching, kind of almost like a reverse etch parts of the blade. It's kind of like a huge cleaver in a way.
Yeah. It's like a big Warncliffe blade, like with the nose rolls down at the end with a almost straight blade. It's not exactly straight, but very typical Warncliffe style, and a beautiful piece of crown stag for the handle. What a neat piece.
Yeah. So he got that in Austria, I think, because he was in Austria for a long time.
Wow.
And then this I picked up just at an antique store up in Petaluma, I think, California, just north of where I lived. And it was just a really great, I've never been able to find it. So it's basically a fixed blade knife in a sheath that's got like nickel silver cap on the tip of the sheath, and then a collar around the other side of the sheath, the other end where the knife goes in, but it says W.H. Hutton, Edgewater, St. Anne is all engraved on there. And I've researched that for many years, and I've never been able to find any reference to who that is or where that is.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe AI could help me now. I don't know if I've ever put it into chat. But then it's also got, the initials engraved on the end of the butt end of the knife. And then it's, but the knife itself is Joseph Rogers and Sons from Sheffield. It's loose. I got to figure out, kind of why that is. But then it's also got a corkscrew, built into the stag ends. Really nice stag handle. Yeah, but it's got a corkscrew built into it.
Yeah,
and
that's really cool.
Overall, probably 8 inches.
Yep, every bit of that.
It's just a cool little dagger.
It's a Sheffield blade. It makes you wonder if the whole thing was made in Sheffield or if just the blade and somebody did something with it. It has, it's almost like Swiss Army knife style. So it's got the corkscrew, but then it has like toothpick and tweezers kind of.
Yeah, it's missing. It's missing the toothpick, I think, but it's the tweezers are still there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You can pull the tweezers. So I should have somebody make. I don't know. Who do you know that can make an actual toothpick to slide in there?
We can find the right person.
Just steel. I'm guessing it's just like a,
looks like blued steel.
Yeah.
And the tweezers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, use Westinghouse ivory micarta or something that, Ivorite for the toothpick. I wonder, did the initials match the name on the on the mouth?
I have a real hard time reading those. What do you call it when the initials are all kind of smashed together like that?
Really stylized, kind of stacked initials.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's something you'd want to take a picture of with the camera, blow it up on the computer screen or something.
Yeah. But I think I can make out an H and a W.
Definitely looks like an H and a W. Yeah. Which would fit with this, right?
Yep.
W.H. Hutton.
Yep.
Huh. That's really cool.
Yeah. But, again, just unique piece sitting in an antique store.
Yeah.
Kind of feeds my knife passion and my just overall kind of interesting, one-of-a-kind piece. And then, so that kind of covers the odds and ends on the table. And then I've got some watches because I know you and I both share a passion for watches.
Yes.
So, but I guess just one thing for sure to cover would be, as we talk about the hunt, this is a great story of how the hunt leads to, finding something. So I was watching, I'm a big Jackson Browne fan. I was watching a Tiny Desk concert. You ever watch those Tiny Desk concerts, NPR?
Yep.
So watch the Jackson Browne one. It's fantastic. He does like 4 songs with guys from his crew, and you can see he's wearing this watch actually. And I didn't know what watch it was, but it was a vintage chronograph, black dial to kind of silver or white subdials and black bezel on it. But so I kept taking pictures. Every time he'd change the guitars, you could see the watch. And I'm like, what is that watch? I couldn't figure it out. I was sending pictures to a couple of my buddies, and then finally narrowed it down to that it was a Breitling Datora. So I'm like, oh, cool. So now that I know what kind of watch it is, I can just go find one. Well, you can't, because they're like non-existent on the internet in the secondary market. So I had to put a saved search I did on, my usual places. Saved search was eBay for sure. But Chrono24, I did a saved search. Right. And I, like 5 months later, I got a ping, and this one was for sale. So it's in decent condition. I've since worn it a bunch, and so they're great. The hunt was over. I found the watch that I wanted, and I have it now, and so everything's great. Well, I forgot to delete the saved search, and then probably a number of months at least, if not a year later, I got another ping on that search.
Of course, yeah.
And this ended up being freaking amazing because there's an incredible story. So, in the box, new old stock.
Oh, geez.
With the price tag still on the back.
Oh, wow.
Of the watch.
How cool.
And And what makes this piece so incredible is that there's a whole story behind it where when was this written? I have the article, the story that was written about this. It's at least 2003. There's the date of this print that I have of this article called Every True Collector's Fantasy. And basically it starts out, it says, it's every true collector's dream, a long forgotten safety deposit box key, a safety deposit signed in slip with years and years of accumulated dust. The adrenaline pumping moments as the guards carry the boxes to the private room for your inspection. The door closes. You're alone with the steel boxes. Opening the first lid, you find hundreds of examples of your collecting passion, old examples, but exactly as they came from the factory the day they were made, and the factory delivery boxes never opened, never used, pristine. Imagine the thrill. Ron Gewiniger he experienced it in late May when he acquired the entire inventory of new old stock Breitlings from the estate of Joseph, I can't really get the last name, of Zurich, who first uncovered them in 1996. These are Breitlings that date from before August 1979, when the almost 100-year-old Breitling firm was closed after Willie Breitling's death earlier that year. So basically, what the story goes on to say is that, when the quartz era came and everybody thought that quartz was going to be the end of mechanical watches, Willie Breitling took all of these brand new watches and just put them in a bank vault.
Yeah.
And there they sat. And then until, this person discovered them, and then this person bought the whole collection of them and started selling them. And they've, I'm sure, since been, dispersed out, across the world to collectors. But this one, popped up for sale. And it's like, again, one of those things like, well, do I really need it? No, but the story is so incredible.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's like one of my favorite watches that I hunted for and bought to wear, but now I have, I can't wear this one because it's got the price tag on the back.
Exactly.
It would end up, wearing off with just being against my skin. So
Absolutely,
as much as I would love to wear the new old stock one, it's just something to collect.
Yes. Wow.
And to see, a
really,
watch.
Really cool to see a loved example next to the new old stock example too, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, that's fascinating. Do you have any idea based on serial numbers and stuff how far these are apart?
Oh, I didn't check that. That's interesting. I should check that.
Somebody's got to have a good reference on serial number and year, right?
Original price, $285.
Yeah.
But I mean, just the bracelet is in mint condition.
Yes,
no scratches at all on the original bracelet.
That's real cool.
Yeah. And I'm dying to somehow get a hold of Jackson Brown and just talk to him about it. I don't know. I'd love to talk to Jackson Brown about a lot of different things, because I feel like he and I have a lot in common in terms of just, our kind of thoughts on the environment and, corporate greed and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, the box that this is in is really cool too, right? It's a very, you said 70s?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's even got this.
Oh yeah, with the perforated serial number in it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The box is like for people that know old Rolex boxes, right? The old green small box. It's similar to that, but it's like a brown faux leather with a little gilt pattern on it. But then it's got this, I had pants like this as a kid, right? It's got this tan corduroy.
Yeah, like a real fine corduroy.
Yeah, I hated those pants, but it's an instant throwback reminder, right, of that time period, looking at that.
Were those Toughskins?
I don't even
Sears?
Probably.
Remember the old days?
I do remember.
Yeah. Huskies?
Yeah, they were Huskies for sure.
Yeah.
I was a little round kid without question. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And having the two is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So Jim's, just for give people a sense of scale here, Jim's got three boxes in front of us. They're 32 a box?
Yeah.
So there's 100-ish watches. And the thing that I really like about your collection, Jim, I've seen it in pieces, right, over time. And so it's cool to see a bunch of these all in one spot. But it's like this is going to sound like I'm kissing ass, but it's like it's a non-pretentious collection, in my opinion, right? Because it's got stuff in it that you have just because you like it, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool. And it doesn't matter that it's not a certain brand or from a certain price point or something else. It's a really, really cool cross-section of, I guess, tool, dive, whatever kind of genre, right? Everything.
Yep. A lot of vintage, a lot of contemporary as well, but a lot of vintage and a lot of dive watches.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I do dive. I have dove. I'm certified to dive. I actually got certified so that I could take my waterproof metal detector down 15, 20 feet deep in some of the ponds around Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Try to clean up some of the gold rings that people lose under the dive platforms out at these ponds.
Right.
But then I learned pretty quickly that trying to stay down on the bottom while metal detecting and scooping in the sand underwater is near impossible.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work and it exhausts you right away and you burn up all your air right away.
Because you're trying to breathe heavy while you're doing work underwater.
Yeah, but we can bring these closer.
Yeah.
Just, I know there's probably more to, but just, feel free to just ask about any of them, so, I mean, brands, again, it spans the gamut of brands basically, but, all brands I like.
The stuff I really, really like the most, I think, are the Zodiac, vintage Zodiac and Zodiac style. Maybe Zodiac style is not a fair way to say it. What's a better way to describe that, Jim? People that know old Zodiac watches will know what I'm talking about, but cushion case diver stuff, right?
Yeah.
Lots of different styles, but
yeah, I would say that's a good way to describe it. Certainly there, you got them. Yeah. I mean, I've got quite a few contemporary Zodiacs in here, but I've got some vintage as well.
Right.
And I'm wearing showed this to you. I think this will be dropping. If everything goes well, it should be dropping on the 23rd of this month.
Oh, the collaboration.
This is the collaboration.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a Super Seawolf Pro Diver in colorway of a vintage one that I have.
Yeah.
I actually sent it off to Worn and Wound to take photos of because they're doing a whole write-up on the collaboration with Zodiac and Giant Mouse.
Yeah.
So they have it right now, my vintage one. But I'll show you the box set.
So this collab watch is really cool. It's like, I love this kind of colorway. It has like a light blue bubble style bezel and orange inner chapter ring and orange hands. That combination I love, right? It always reminds me of Gulf racing, that kind of combination right, of a light blue and orange.
So it'll come in a big box set like this.
Oh, fantastic.
So it'll have an insert card in there. So you'll get the watch in its own box, and then the knife is a Giant Mouse dive.
Oh yeah,
Giant Mouse dive knife that was designed is sort of along with Zodiac and a couple of their ambassadors that are divers.
Right.
So it's got a blunt tip. It's got some serrations on the blade. It's got a line cutter, and then black aluminum handle and orange G10 inlay.
I think Jesper showed me an early version of this, or an early iteration of it when we met one time at a brewery nearby.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, during one of his visits.
You remember we had lunch that one day and Patrick Doyle joined us?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I went down to Mason a couple weeks ago to Not Just Guns.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see if they offered any classes.
Yeah.
Shooting classes, but I also wanted to see if they had knives in there, which they actually have a really great selection of mostly Microtech and Benchmades.
Yep.
But the guy who I was asking questions to, he looked so familiar to me. And I'm like, I know you from somewhere. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. He's looking at me and I said, do you ever go to Blade Show? Because that's where it was pinging in my head. And he said, yeah. He said, what's your name? And I told him, and he's like, oh, I'm Patrick Doyle. And so he didn't have his beard. Yeah. He's kind of more clean, still a little, scraggly, but just more clean shaven. And then once he told me, I was like, oh, for sure.
Of course,
Of course, that's who you are.
And that's really cool.
Yeah. So we're going to try to see if he's talking to the owners about getting Giant Mouse into their,
that's really
into their
fun.
store.
Yeah. You guys had told me about this box set collaboration with Zodiac. So for people, the box is huge because it has a knife box and a big watch box inside. But what a awesome combination of stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's like a limited number of them.
Yeah, 300 units, matching
Wow.
numbers. The knives and the watches will have matching numbers. And then
Very cool.
The watch, on the back of the watch, it says Giant Mouse Edition, and it has our logo on the back. This little small
That's
logo.
fantastic.
Yeah. So it's really cool for me, being so passionate about watches and Zodiac in particular, having a big collection of Zodiac watches, to be able to, introduce my company to them and have them a brand like Zodiac that's, 125, I think, 140 years old. I'm to go back and look, but to have them basically say, hey, this sounds really, really interesting. Let's do something. Let's do this. So it kind of validates Giant Mouse for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And says, and again, there've been these validations, Castle and Key Distillery wanting to play with us and do an exclusive knife for Castle and Key, and Shinola wanting to having us do an exclusive version of our Bleecker in brass for Shinola.
Right.
And now this Zodiac collab, it's nice because I lose sight of the fact that, we are a more and more recognized brand in the industry now.
Yeah.
And I still kind of look at it like it's my little startup, it's just kind of my hobby business. But, with 7 full-time employees now.
I think you've had this cooking for a while, this deal with Zodiac, right?
Yeah. That's been, it's these collaborations are not easy to pull off. There's so many moving parts, and, so many people have to be involved. But it's probably a year and a half at least in the works.
Yeah. I think you and I had met up for food and a beer, and you were excited at the time because you had kind of gotten started on this conversation with them about doing something together. So it's really cool to see it all kind of finally come together. And those are coming out when?
I think we're shipping out all the knives to Texas, to Zodiac. They've got all the boxes there and all the watches there. So they're basically, over this next week, they're all getting shipped out to where they need to be for retailers and things. We'll have a few sets for sale on our website.
Wow.
But I think that the most of them are going to be sold through 2 or 3 of Zodiac's retailers. I think probably including Worn and Wound.
Yeah.
Or Wind Up Watch Shop as part of Worn and Wound.
March
23rd,
basically.
February 23rd.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like a week from Monday.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. I'm traveling that day to Nuremberg, I think. So I won't even be here for the drop.
Yeah.
But
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and then Panerai, of course, you're a big fan.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got quite a collection.
Yeah, there's some great examples in here. Love it. And a couple of Bronzos, which I covet and still have never owned. I probably should figure out my way to get one someday. The screen is your original one, right?
Yep.
So Jim's got a really cool original green Bronzo. And what's the ref on this one? 382?
Yep. 382. And
this thing's been through at least a few iterations of patina in its life. I've seen it look in a bunch of different ways over the years.
Yeah, I've never polished it, so it's just evolved and evolved and evolved, and I wore it a ton, and I still do, but it's basically took on a patina from like San Francisco Bay Area climate,
right,
and then also East Coast Cape Cod climate, because I would wear it a ton in both locations.
Right,
so I feel like just the humidity, whatever causes patina over time. But I've never polished it. I've had friends that have these that have always just polished them all the time and keep them polished, and I can't stand that. I want it to develop its natural patina just based on where I'm wearing it and kind of what I'm doing when I'm wearing it, and how if I'm sweating or not. It's adding to the patina.
Yeah, you're collecting your experiences in the patina almost, right? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's such a cool piece, and it has looked different over the years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think each time we've gotten together and you've had it on, usually I'm like, hey, Jim, let me look at that watch. And it reaches that certain point where it turns glossy, right?
Yes.
Which is really, really cool.
Yes. So I haven't worn the blue dialed Bronzo nearly as much, and you can see how it doesn't have the shine it's still patinaed, but it's like a polished patina based on my touching and wearing the green one all the time. And this one has just got a little bit of shine, on some of the parts that, I would touch more often than others.
Right. Yeah, that's really fun. Beautiful. This DLC piece, that's
the 360.
The 360. This is the Panaristi watch?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty controversial piece, actually.
Yeah.
Back in the day when Panaristi.com, it was long before Instagram and Facebook was happening. And so Panaristi.com was the place for all of us Panaristi enthusiasts to hang out and talk about Panerai.
Yeah.
And then so they came out with this watch specifically for the Panaristi.com crew, and then it was going to be a limited edition of 300 units. And so they asked everybody to put their name in that wanted one. And we were all told it was going to be kind of a lottery to see, who's going to get one.
Yeah.
But then what we ended up learning after the fact was that it was kind of more, there was a list of people that had to get one because they were so involved with Panaristi.com. And so then a lot of people that didn't end up getting them that thought they should were really bent, which I totally understand.
Yeah.
I was a big part of Panaristi.com, but I was never a moderator or anything like that. And so, why I ended up getting one, I'm not really sure, but I was certainly honored to get one.
Yeah, it's a very cool piece.
Yeah.
Black DLC, base style, OP on the dial. Such a cool watch. And like you said, that's when somewhere in that time frame, there was like this, I'm not sure the most accurate way to say it. It felt like there was some splintering in the whole Panerai collector scene, right? Where once people get kind of a bad taste in their mouth from stuff like this, right? Then it starts to get a little weird and there's little factions and, that happens in the knife world too over the years. And it's a pity to see because, much like we had with the USN back in the day for knife stuff, right? This Panaristi crowd was a very loyal and enthusiastic group of people, and many of which still are today, obviously, right?
They are. There wasn't one this past December, probably because P-Day was in New York in October. So I went to P-Day, which had a couple hundred people from around the world that were, most of them, good friends that I had met on Panaristi.com over the years, and, they all showed up in New York for P-Day. But for the past, number of years, there would always be in early December, an annual dinner for the kind of local and whoever else can come into town for it, and we'd have 30 or 40 people show up for a dinner every December that just all old friends from Panaristi.com, mostly. Pretty cool.
Yeah. P-Day, for people not familiar, is like a gathering of kind of like a knife get together, but for Panaristi fans of the brand, enthusiasts to get together and bring their stuff, and kind of like a Red Bar meet. That's what a much bigger version. But
yeah, that's a kind of a cool piece. It's just an old dive watch, a Squally. When we were doing the pop-up shop at Filson a number of years ago, 2022, I guess, I pinged James Landon from Analog Shift. And said, hey, there's a few watches on your site that, I've kind of had my eye on, if you're going to swing by, the Filson pop-up, bring them along. So he brought them along. So I ended up buying this.
That's really cool.
Really nice condition.
This is another 70s kind of piece, right?
Yeah. I'm kind of a 70s, I grew up in the 70s.
Right.
And so it's just, I'm very drawn to 70s style art and architecture and certainly watches.
Yeah. This is a fave of mine.
Yeah, the IWC Big Pilot.
Yeah. So this is an original version, the proper Big Pilot, in Jim's words. I think I was shopping Big Pilots at one point in time, and I remember you saying, oh, they have this real funky version where the triangle on 12 is not in the right place, and you had lots of reasons why you didn't like the later versions. And so when they went back to that original style, right? The current one is much more like this than it was in between. But these are very, very fun. Such a great watch. So this is a 5002 is the ref, is that right?
Yeah.
IWC Big Pilot. A friend let me wear his around the New York show
Have
one
you
time.
seen one of these commencements?
Fell in love. Oh, I've seen at least pictures of them.
Yeah, it's a block of bronze,
Yes.
super thick, heavy bronze, handmade in Germany. I haven't seen much of anything from him lately. He was putting up his watches on Instagram for quite a while. 300 bar.
Right. Yeah, probably. It feels like it's good to much deeper than that.
Yeah, right.
It's like a big hockey puck piece of bronze with huge domed bezel, or huge domed crystal.
Yeah, that looks super thick. It's almost like a magnifying glass crystal.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things I like about the dome crystals on Panerai is it has, like this does, it's like a fisheye view into the crystal or into the dial. Kevensman triggerfish for people who are familiar with that brand or have seen pictures of them before. There were a few companies that made watches of that super big bronze chunky style, right? In 47 and even bigger.
Yeah. Yep. Helson, certainly had some cool, brass, I think brass or bronze dive watches.
Yep. An Ebby, maybe? Another company?
An Ebby, yeah. So, I've got a titanium An Ebby.
Yes.
One of the more original An Ebby Fandales.
Yeah. That's beautiful. The Thai version is really cool because it's this big monster, but it doesn't weigh like the bronze ones. I had a couple different bronze variations in that super ginormous diver style, and they were really nice, but gosh, they were tanks to wear around.
Yeah. This is kind of a fun Helson. It's called the Gauge.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, it just looks like an old car gauge on your dashboard. From 5 to 60 are the numbers on the dial, 1,000 meters.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun piece. I think one of our Detroit Red Bar guys might have one of these, Helson Gauge. That's a great watch. And it's got that same kind of distortion from the big dome, right?
Yeah.
Where from certain angles, the minute markers actually disappear. You can't see them at all.
Yeah. Dreadnought from Time Factors.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an original Dreadnought and then I sold it and then wished I hadn't sold it. And I tried to find one again. And so this is a Pt.2.
Okay.
The second version that they did.
Yeah.
But it's just a really great,
beautiful
classic dive watch with great color. Orange just pops on the hands. Outlined, white hands outlined in orange.
I love the big orange block at 12 on that watch, on the dial.
Yeah.
Very cool looking. Fun. The Doxa is another brand that I always really
I like
have
Doxa.
enjoyed. This one's a yellow dial beads of rice bracelet. This is
the
classic.
GMT.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I love how they do their GMT hand with the great big hollow sword. Beautiful. Well, these are fun, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for showing them to me.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. You and I both have
the Kermit.
Old Kermit.
The original.
Flat four, the whole deal. Yeah.
That was, as soon as they announced they were coming out with that, I told my local AD, get me on your list. So the first one they got in Corte Madera, California, they sold to me.
So Kermit, for people not familiar, this is a Rolex Submariner, and with the modern style big index dial, the maxi dial they call it, black dial with the green bezel. So I think the modern version, they nicknamed it the Starbucks or something. But this is in the older style, smaller case, much slimmer. This is such a nice visual, this combination of the big maxi dial, but in the old style case with an aluminum bezel.
Yeah, I really like the aluminum bezel.
Yeah.
So much more than the ceramic bezels.
Yeah, and the rarity piece of it, one of the pieces that comes in is there are only some number of them that have where the 40 is on the bezel actually has a flat on top of the 4. And so if you hear someone say a flat 4 Submariner or a flat 4 Kermit, that's what they're referring to. Yeah, Amy got me one for my birthday some years ago.
That's really nice.
Yeah, really fun. And the green they'll change color over time if you have them out a lot, right? They turn sort of a funky green color.
Yeah, I wore the shit out of that one, actually. That used to be my banger every day. I've metal detected in the ocean with that one.
Is that right?
Countless times. I've metal detected up at an old Boy Scout camp up in the hills in California with that thing digging in the dirt. I mean, I just beat the crap out of it, but luckily it's in great condition.
It is, yeah.
Once I realized that the value was going up so high on those, I'm like, man, I'm not wearing that thing out metal detecting anymore.
Right. They've gotten kind of crazy. Okay. Well, thanks for showing me these watches, Jim. Some of these I've not seen, but some of them I have because I've seen you with them on your wrist before. Our buddy, Greg Stevens.
Greg
used to have his
Stevens,
watches lined up in
I've
there.
got most of his designs in here.
Yeah.
I've been good friends with Greg for 15, 20 years, whatever, and kind of helped him get his watch project off the ground early on. And so, I've been kind of collecting them ever since.
Right. Yeah, and Greg does a nice job with design stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of his first ones,
cool classics.
They're very basic, but still quite cool in their own right. But just with the big giant indices at 12, two at 12, two indices at 12, just blocks, rectangles, and one at 3, one at 6, and one at 9. The larger just rectangles. Very simplistic, and then he would always put his logo on the dial, but very ghosted. Like you really can't see it unless you. For me, put my cheaters on and look real close. I can see his logo on the dial.
Yeah, it's embossed into the dial.
Yeah.
It's a great look. That was what really one of the things that really got my attention. Right, coming from with the Panerai stuff, I've always been a base dial guy. So for people not familiar with the brand, base dial meaning there's no seconds indicator, just a super simple, clean, sparse dial. And Greg's early edition watches were all done that way. And I really like that. They looked unbranded, like you said, until you look close. And then there's an embossed logo on the dial, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
They're just super clean. Or really fun, man. You mentioned metal detecting a couple times, and that's probably a good one to at least have a short conversation about. Explain how you got into metal detecting, and you have some great stories around things that you've found. And
do you have one of my books? Did I ever give you one of my books?
I don't think so.
Okay. I think I've got a few copies yet at home.
Really?
I self-published a book that was never available for sale anywhere. I just bought, a number of copies to give to like family and friends. So you got to remind me to get you a copy, but it kind of tells the whole story of how I got into it.
Okay.
But then like each chapter, and they're not really chapters, but each section of the book is like a particular outing or hunt, that I went on, and wrote about all the different things that I found on that particular hunt, or outing. So how I got into it when I was a kid, I had an older brother. I had actually four older siblings, but my 3 oldest siblings had already been, moved out of the house. They were in college or whatever. But my brother Tim and I were at home, and he's 3 years older than I am. And one day my mom said, "Hey boys, Mr. Warner across the street." We lived at the end of a cul-de-sac. And so we had this neighbor across the street, at the time, my brother and I thought was just this, crazy old man who was always going up north and snowmobiling and, bringing back deer and hanging the deer in his garage and gutting and, cleaning his deer. And he was probably, in his, early to mid 40s, but to my brother and I, back when we were 10, I was 10 and my brother was probably 13, he just was an old timer, right? She said, "I want you boys to go across the street. Mr. Warner wants to show you his treasures that he's found metal detecting." And we're like, "Oh my God, really?" She's like, "Yeah, I told him you were going to go, so you have to go." And we're like, "Mom, he's this weird old guy. We don't want to go over there." So we went over, and he took us into this room in his house and opened the door. And I swear, as a kid, my memory of it was like the doors opening to like Alibaba and the 40 Thieves treasure hoard.
Right.
He had relics and coins and jewelry and treasure everywhere in this room. He'd been metal detecting, and this is in the 70s.
Yeah.
And he'd been metal detecting for a long time already, and he was like an expert at it, know. And so he showed us all this stuff. And I remember he had like coat hangers, wire coat hangers that he had taken like apart and put rings on, and then twisted the tops back together. And he had like a bunch of those filled with rings that he'd found.
Wow.
So my brother and I run back home like, oh my God, Mom, you got to get us a metal detector. We want a metal detector so bad. So Mr. Warner would take my brother and I out and he taught us how to metal detect.
Wow.
And that time it was just land. Like he would take us to the state park and he would take us to old ghost towns. He had a cabin in Houghton Lake, and I remember one time he took us to the cabin for like a weekend, actually, so my brother and I went and we stayed for the weekend, but he would take us out to these like places in the woods where he had found foundations.
Okay.
Like while he was out hunting, he'd find foundations in the woods. So he'd know there had been houses and things. So, we started finding like some old silver coins and things at these places. And it just, again, for me, struck a passion and became a hobby that, it's really, when I got into high school and through college, kind of completely put to the side and didn't do anything with.
Sure.
And then once I started working in a career and had sort of some decent disposable income, I started thinking about, what should I spend some of this money that I'm making on,
Right.
What are the things that I would like to do? And then I remembered how much I enjoyed metal detecting. So I'm like, I wonder what the technology's like now.
Yeah.
And again, this would have been back in like probably around the mid 90s, I guess, and I stopped by a store and picked up a metal detecting magazine that I used to always, get when I was younger. We had a subscription to, Treasure magazine or whatever it was.
Huh.
And so I got the magazine and I started going through and looking at all the ads and I saw, oh my gosh, the technology now, or back then in the mid 90s, it tells you how deep the item is, that you've gone over, it'll give you an indication of the depth. It'll give you an indication with, pretty good, accuracy of like, is it, like a coin? Is it like a dime or a nickel or a penny or a quarter based on the conductivity of it and the size that it's determining it is? So I was like, oh man, that's amazing. So I bought, a pretty good, metal detector at that time and started going out and hitting these Boy Scout camps and things near me and started finding like all this great stuff and just cool, relics and things. But then when I sold my company, the first company there, the consulting firm, we started spending our summers in Cape Cod.
Yeah.
As a family with the kids. Unfortunately, neither one of my boys ever got into metal detecting. I tried. Neither one of them had the patience for it. They really didn't, and they'd get frustrated really quick and just give up. And so I really never had that. One of my sons like going and really doing this with me a lot. So I just do it on my own. But I met a guy, I wanted to try water metal detecting, right? Because there was these waterproof metal detectors that had come out and you could take them out, like 10 feet deep. Some of them could go, upwards of 10 feet deep. And then there's one that I ended up getting originally that you can actually dive with. It can go like 200 feet deep if you wanted to go that deep. But so I started going and hitting the beaches and getting out in the water. But then the woman that runs the metal detecting shop in Cape Cod, where I bought my first waterproof machine, she told me about a guy that lived right nearby because she's pretty tall. And she said, there's this guy, Rick, that lives around here and he's a good friend of mine and he's tall like you. And he gets out really deep because he's tall and he finds all the good stuff. She said, I should put you in touch with him. So she did. And we connected and we went out and detecting together a few times and basically we became like every summer that I would be there, like most mornings he would come by around 5:30 or 6 and pick me up and we'd go off. And if the low tides were, if the early morning tides were low, we'd hit the ocean beaches and get out as deep as we could at low tide. And then if the tides were off, it was, if it was high tide in the mornings, then we'd go to do the ponds, the freshwater ponds, because there's like 360 freshwater ponds around Cape Cod, and most of them have swimming beaches. And I started finding, gold rings and jewelry and necklaces and, crucifixes. And so I've never sold any of my stuff. And now with gold, the value that gold's hit, this was a few months ago when gold like crossed over like $3,000 or $3,500 an ounce. I got my box of all my gold rings out that I'd found metal detecting over the years.
Yeah.
And I separated them all into I've one 24-karat gold ring that I found at the Boy Scout camp out in California, which is just a small ring with like some like Yiddish or something like writing on it. It's just a weird little ring, but it's so heavy because it's 24-karat gold. So again, for its size, it's heavier than it looks like it should be. But, a lot of 18-karat and 14-karat and 10-karat. So I separated them all by carat and then weighed everything and then put it all into a gold calculator. And that's like 40 grand worth of gold
That's
at
crazy.
scrap value. And some of them have stones in them,
Right.
I mean, there's a number of them that have diamonds in them. And so it's like, but just scrap value was like, then I think about my friend Rick and then the other guy, Leighton, that I metal detect with all the time now in the summers. They've been doing water detecting for 30, 40 years. They've cashed in even back when gold was like $1,200, an ounce. They were cashing in tons of their gold. Rick ended up buying a Porsche, like an older Porsche with gold that he cashed in. And I know when he moved from Connecticut to Cape Cod, I think he had about 80 grand worth of gold that he had cashed in to put the down payment on his house.
Wow.
So these guys have cashed in like probably hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gold over the years, I mean, because I don't do it year round like them. I only do it for like the time that we're there in Cape Cod. So a few weeks out of the summer. There was a period of time where we would go for like 7 weeks each summer when the kids would get out of school. We'd go there and spend the whole summer there and then come back right before school would start. But usually it's like, I'm there 2 or 3 weeks a summer and only get out, some of the days that I'm there. So, but these guys are like almost every day they're going out and, middle of winter, they put on they call them the Gumby suits. They're basically the dry suits and they go out in the ocean where there's like ice on the shore and they're out there metal detecting in the water in the dead of winter.
Wow.
But they've cleaned up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like there's people probably have different motivations for doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so the treasure hunter piece of it, I can totally understand. Okay, that's cool. Right. In your case where you haven't sold stuff,
it's the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah, right.
It all comes back to the thrill of the hunt and the find, the discovery. It truly is a treasure hunt. And to be out there early in the morning, I mean, first of all, it's just beautiful to be in the ocean at 6 a.m. when the sun's coming up. And to see like out in the distance, every now and again, something like the spout from a whale, going up, or I'm drawing a blank on the damn name of the birds that are around the
like a pelican or
water.
whatever?
No, they're like birds of prey.
Okay.
Osprey
or something.
Ospreys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so there's tons of osprey around Cape Cod. I mean, we've got a pond behind our house, and there's usually osprey that we can watch flying around our pond. But out there in the water, you're out there chest deep, neck deep, and you're metal detecting. But you don't need to be watching the ground or anything. You're just looking around, waiting for a sound to come through your headphones. And the osprey, you'll see them flying around, but then they'll pause and they'll hover, and then they dive, and you watch them dive and splash and come up with a fish. I mean, that alone is worth the price of admission, And so then, to be out there a few hours and, but while you're there, you're digging up lots of coins, you're scooping them up, nails and screws and just chunks of metal, whatever. But to then have one of your signals that you scoop up and you pull that scoop up out of the water and the sand, kind of goes through the holes in the scoop and you've got just some rocks left in there, some shells. And you see a flash of gold in there, or you see the round, the shape of a ring, it's either a white gold or it might be titanium or steel, whatever. You see that round shape in there. And you're like, that dopamine hit of, that's what I've been hunting for. And I got one.
Yeah.
It's like fishing, you're out there fishing for a few hours and then you get a hit and you get a big fish on.
Right.
And it's like that thrill of the catch. And you pull them out, and I've found old class rings. I returned a lot of class rings over the years. I returned one, surprised the guy. I tracked him down through his high school yearbook and found the address that his address was listed in this high school yearbook. And then I did some searches on like whitepages.com or whatever and found that he was living in the same house that must have been his parents' house when he was in high school.
Wow.
He had lost his ring 55 years earlier, and I found it in the ocean. And so we went, Tracy and I went, we were dropping our son off at the airport in Boston. So it was in Quincy, Mass, and we stopped then and knocked on this guy's door. And after a while he came, he's kind of probably in his mid 70s. And he was, very cautious, kind of opened the door a crack, can I help you? And I said, yeah, are you so-and-so? And he's like, yeah. I said, did you go to this high school? He said, yeah. I said, did you lose your high school class ring at some point? And he's like, I lost that damn ring the year I graduated, And I said, well, here, I found it. It was a gold, solid gold, beautiful class ring. And I said, I found it in the ocean, and I put it in his hand, and he was like dumbfounded. He didn't know what to think. But I've had a few like that I've returned to people over the years. And then there's some that I've just never been able to track. And I found one that's a huge gold ring from Boston College, 1932, but it has no initials or name anywhere in it or on it. So it's like, there's no way I can return that.
Right.
And that was one of these finds where it's like, it was right on the water's edge, and, that hundreds of people or the same person hundreds of times have metal detected along there over the years, but based on how the sand moves, it exposes layers that, the gold's heavy and it sinks down. And so we're always looking for like the deeper, scalloped out areas of sand, or once we get into like rocks, if we're hitting rocks with our scoop, we know that we're like kind of at the bottom where, the stuff is going to settle. So there's a lot of, like strategy that goes into it that you learn over the years to kind of improve your chances of finding things. But every now and again, where you'd least expect to find something like this huge gold ring pops out. And I'm like, what the hell? I never expected to find that like right here at the water's edge.
Yeah. Very interesting. It's a very interesting hobby, right? I mean, yeah, I don't even know what to say about it. I mean, I think it's fascinating, and I would guess that it's a thing where there's a lot of that in the zone Zen time thing, like I was kind of mentioning earlier, right?
Yeah.
Where once you're there and you're in that mode, like you said, you're enjoying nature, you're doing your thing. Maybe it becomes a little bit automatic almost until you start to hear something.
Yep.
Yeah. There's probably something very soothing about that, I would guess.
Yeah, there really is. I've really enjoyed that hobby. I would recommend it to anybody that really wants a relaxing, fun hobby. It takes a lot of patience, and it does take some level of like getting better at, like interpreting the signals, and, certainly learning your metal detector, because they're so computerized now, and there's so many different settings for so many different types of environments. So, if you're going to get into it, buy a kind of a higher end, I would recommend MindLab. I used to use White's all the time, detectors, but I moved to MindLab. So now all my detectors are MindLab. I mean, if you watch like Curse of Oak Island or some other shows on TV and you see the guys metal detecting, they're usually using MindLab.
Okay.
I sometimes at the SHOT Show or the IWA show in Nuremberg, MindLab always has a booth there because they're outdoor industry kind of things. And a lot of times they'll have like the guy that does the metal detecting, Curse of Oak Island. He's there in the booth, as kind of a celebrity metal detectorist. Yeah.
Sponsored guy.
Yeah, I sent one of my books actually to the guy, one of the two brothers from that Curse of Oak Island show. He owns a winery up in Michigan, in Traverse City area. So I sent one of my books up to him, and he sent me a note back and said, "Thanks so much for the book. I'm going to take it with me to Oak Island and leave it there for the guys to look through." I was kind of hoping they'd invite me out to metal detect at one point, and join Gary, the metal detector guy, because I'd love to swing my detector around there.
Wow.
But yeah, it's all kind of goes back to kind of the wonders of of a kid's mind, they're just like using your imagination, like anything's possible. Like, this could be anything. I could find anything.
Right.
I found a gold coin one time, and it was again in the least expected place. My oldest son was 6, and I went we went to see my mom, who lived near us in California, and I wanted to just show him how easy it was to find treasure, by metal detecting around the backyard of a house that she was renting. And these houses were all built on landfill that was brought in the 50s, 1950s, I think it was when they were expanding the width of the Highway 101 going up through Marin County.
Okay.
And they brought in a lot of the landfill to put into this kind of swampy area in kind of San Rafael area of California, and they ended up building these subdivisions in there. So I'm guessing that's how this coin ended up getting there, because again, the house wasn't that old. But we were going around the backyard, and I was popping out a quarter here, a dime there, some pennies and nickel, and showing them, hey, look, this is treasure. This is how easy it is to find treasure. And then I got this signal, and again, my detector told me that it identified it as either a dime or a penny, 7 inches deep. So I thought, wow, if this is, a dime that's that deep, there's a good chance it's a silver dime, because it's, the older stuff ends up being a lot deeper. So I dug, pretty good sized hole, dug around, and it was kind of muddy down in the hole. But I went, once I dug out, the plug, and I went over it with my detector, the signal was still there in the hole, but it had changed to telling me it was $1. Like a silver dollar. And
okay.
I'm like, well, that's weird. And usually in my experience, when a signal changes like that, it ends up being just like a crushed tin can or something that's really deep. So I was a little bummed, but I ended up, putting my digging knife in there and scooped around a bit and pulled out this wad of mud and waved it over the coil of my metal detector and got the signal. So I knew I had it in my hand. So I started, kind of looking through the mud, and I saw this bright gold like the reeded edge of a coin.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, what is that? And started, and it was a $10 gold piece, 1886 $10 gold piece.
Wow.
And I was like, totally flipped out. Called my brother Tim right away, who was my metal detecting buddy when we were kids, and had to share that with him, because that's like one of the holy grails of a metal detectorist, is to find a gold coin. And they're in the least expected place.
Yeah, like you said, that's probably the case for lots of that stuff, right?
Yeah, you just never know. It's kind of like, Smeagol finding the ring,
right?
Or not Smeagol, but Deagle, I guess. Getting pulled into the river and finding that ring at the bottom of the river, and then having his buddy Smeagol kill him for it. But it's like gold ring sitting there at the bottom of this river. Who'd have expected that?
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And people, I'll end with this. People often ask me, what's the best thing you ever found, or the most interesting thing you ever found? And it's usually, the story I tell is my own wedding ring, because when I would go up to this this Boy Scout camp to metal detect, it was like 300 acres of a big camp that had originally, like back, turn of the century, not the 2000s, but the 1900s, I think, was like a hunting lodge up there. And then it became, I think there was somebody was up there with a ranch, and they raised horses up there. And then in like 1946 or 47, the Boy Scouts took it over to be a Boy Scout camp. And again, there's like 30 different campsites, around this 300 acres that you got to drive to many of them to even get to them. Or you could hike all through the acres to get to them. And I would go up there and this was when I was in that period where I had sold my company. I was kind of retired. I would basically drop my son off at school and head up there and spend the day metal detecting, and then swing by and pick him up on my way home.
Yeah.
And I'd pack a lunch, take a lunch up there, and it's just beautiful up there. I'd see bobcats and just tons of hawks and things, snakes. I was out in nature, just out in these fields, metal detecting. That's where I found that 24 karat gold ring.
Yeah,
lots of other like almost like Navajo Indian rings,
really?
Just like from like the the 60s, 70s kind of era, turquoise rings that were kind of like Indian style rings. The neckerchief slides that the Boy Scouts have. They wear the handkerchief with the slide on it.
I can only imagine.
Hundreds of those standard issue, but a couple dozen really unique slides from like jamborees.
Oh, wow.
Where scouts would come from like all over the world. So like then they would trade slides, the neckerchief slides. So I got one that says Osaka, Japan on it.
Really?
I've got, another one from like Nassau County, a big one that was really deep. Nassau County, New York, for like some, jamboree or something. There's some really unique slides in there that I've found. Tons of rusted out scout knives. They're in the ground for so long that all the steel rusts away, and all you get is the nickel silver bolsters and the kind of the plastic, the fake jigged bone. So tons of those, and
genuine imitation jig bone.
But so one day I was up there metal detecting for a few hours, and then I realized that I had lost my wedding ring, and I was so bummed. I just like stopped and I retraced my steps for like an hour or so, kept retracing my steps where I thought I might have lost it. But I had been in a number of different spots that day, where I started on one end of the campground area, detected for a while, then got in my car, drove over to another area, detected there for a while. So when I noticed that I'd lost my ring, I thought, well, I must have lost it somewhat recently. So I just kept retracing my steps in the one area for a long time. I didn't find it. Was driving home, called my wife, said, I'm just sick to my stomach. I lost my wedding ring. First, she's like, well, you're an idiot for wearing it, metal detecting. People lose their rings all the time. But then she said, you'll find it. And I'm like, no, come on. There's no way. I was so, that would be a miracle if 5 months later, I was up there in a certain area back and where I didn't even think I would have lost it. And and I was running late too, because I had to pick up my kid from school. But so I was like, just like one more signal, one more good signal, one more good find. And I got a signal and it was kind of sprinkling out, and so I was like, I'm all wet. I'm kind of muddy. I'm miserable. And I dig out this plug of grass and some mud and I'm like, oh, it's a ring. And I'm pulling it out of the roots of the grass. And I'm like, it's my ring.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit. 5 months after I lost it, I ended up finding it. And it's cool. It's like, it's not my original wedding ring, but it was one that I really liked at a jewelry store. It's a German company called Niesing, and it's 18 karat gray gold. So the alloy is not white gold. It's like there's the particular makeup of the alloy makes it gray. And it's got this cool, like rolled kind of feature where it's kind of a groove around the middle, like the edges are a little higher than the middle.
Yeah, it's like a big flute.
Yeah, and so that's what I lost, and I was just devastated that I lost it. But then I found it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what metal detecting is, I guess, right?
Yep.
Finding it.
Yep.
Well, Jim, thanks for walking me through all this stuff. It's absolutely fascinating. I think it's an interesting conversation, I think, for people to hear, because people could read about Giant Mouse, not know anything about you, and here's a guy who had some money and started a company with a couple knife makers, right? And the reality is that guy is a maker guy who has made plenty of stuff over the years, right? Not quote unquote just a collector. I mean, collectors are a key piece of what makes this whole thing work, but collector, maker, entrepreneur, I think it's fascinating. So thanks for taking the time to
thanks for asking me to be a part of it.
Yeah. Super fun.
Yep.
And I'll take some pictures before I leave. And if you're in the Facebook group, please, I'm sure you have some stuff that you can share pictures of as well. And we'll put them in the Facebook group and people can see what we're talking about, because it's all fascinating. Tracy, like my wife, is an incredibly patient woman.
Yes. Well, once you hit a certain number of watches, then they don't realize that you have a new one anymore. Like I used to say, like, "Oh, did you see my new watch?" And she'd look and see it looks like all your other watches.
Right.
And that's when I realized, I can just keep buying watches, and she'll never even know that they're new ones.
Yeah. Sometimes we'll be at dinner and Amy will say, "Oh, is that a new watch?" And I'm like, "No, of course not. I've had this for a long time." And sometimes it's true, and sometimes it's a new watch. You never know.
Yep.
You never know. That's the beauty of it all. Awesome.
As long as there's food on the table.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thanks, buddy.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, well, there you go. Jim is a good guy and someone whose company I always enjoy when we get together for a beverage or share a meal. Unfortunate that he now lives nearby. I hope you found that conversation as fascinating as I did. If you're at an event or a knife show or a watch show, definitely take a minute to find him and introduce yourself. He's at most of the stuff that they do representing the company. So he's there. Go find him and say hi. Maybe tell him you listened to the interview and what you thought was the best part. You'll be glad you did. Thanks to our patrons, our folks from Arizona Custom Knives and Giant Mouse again for all of your support. We have another great interview coming up in episode 153, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for sticking with us so long, and as always, thanks for listening. To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine in his Facebook group Crine Knives or on Instagram @Crine Knives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram @birchtreeblades. For my own projects, I'm on the web at raygundivision.com or check my personal Instagram @msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or discussion about the show itself, you can always find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram @markofthemaker. Last but not least, credit for the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show. This is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. And as always, thanks for listening.